Hello, this is John with Theology Ed. We are going to continue with part 5 of the iPet Goat 2 Explained. This is actually going to be about the false flag attack itself. What is it? Where is it at? This sort of thing. I do not have definitive answers, but I have a lot of really interesting things to say that I think the video is showing pretty clearly, and it's related to the planet and God, Neptune. Okay, and I'll show that as we go. The scene that we're going to start with here, we're going to look at. We're really beginning with the chalkboard. So if we go back to that wall, my goal is to talk basically at the end about these marks, okay? These targets for past attacks possibly, but also for future ones, the ones coming. And so I'm going to get to that. That's the motivation for doing this one before going back to the hearts. We've been going from right to left on this chalkboard. We saw that the O with the laugh out loud was representing the eclipse. Let's see, right there. So we have the O that represents the eclipse. We have lots of Mark of the Beast symbolism in the middle here, down below as well. We had the O associated with the Doomsday Clock up top. You know, basically the Doomsday Clock is right here. We have the F equals negative F. That's a vector equation. Talked about how that's related to retrograde motion, the stopping and changing to retrograde motion, or stopping from retrograde motion to go direct. I should note that F is another way to write 666 for Satanists and people in the occult. Okay, so that seems to hint at that as well, along with all the other Mark of the Beast symbolism in the video. I have little doubt that that's actually in play there. So we're moving to the left, the Mark of the Beast, where we have the penis up here representing the solar principle, the shark representing the moon, and they're in union by way of the sperm. We have the shark being a crescent moon, which is happening at the same time as the end of retrograde Venus on, I believe it was June 25th. Was it June 25th, June 26th? June 25th, I believe. Then we have it's noteworthy that the shark also is representing a beast coming out of the sea, hopping out of the sea. So this is your beast rising out of the sea to attack. And the direction he's looking is towards the burning house and also the coasts here. And we know that Bush does his little devil horns and points to the shark with his left hand into the coasts, the Gulf Coast to the East Coast with his right hand. I'll show a screenshot of that in a second, so I don't have to dig around for it in the video. And so the following this logic, going from right to left, before I go back to the hearts, I'm going to go look at this map. So let's go ahead. I'll show you the scene that we will be looking at here. Okay, this is actually a pretty good starting spot. Okay, first thing to note, right here, as we exit the room, we see this part of the Psalm 23 graffiti appearing as a reflection in the mirror, or in the window, excuse me. And, excuse me. And what you're looking at, as I'll show you, is related to Neptune. So let's keep going. That part, you just see what looks like the Greek letter psi, but it's not psi. It's a representation, or it's a symbol, astrological symbol for Neptune. We back up. So now we're going to look at the Psalm 23 part. That's going to be a very big part of this video, one of the focal points. We're going to continue back. We will look at what's written here. Often people think it's woo. There may be an application to woo, but it's I think more importantly it's something else, and I'll explain what that is. We also have the Doomsday Clock here, and we'll back up a little further to right about here. Oops. Sorry about there. And I just posted a video outside of the series, but on the topic, showing that this is the buck moon rabbit, and actually I think you also have a circle within a circle here that comes before it from right to left again, indicating the eclipse first, then the buck moon. And so we have a picture of it, and I'll explain that. So that's the scene. We're going to do these few seconds of the video. Okay. Then our goal is going to be to look at these attacks. What are these? What's being targeted, and how will they be targeted? What sort of attacks are we looking at? Are we looking at dirty bomb nuclear attacks? Are we looking at tsunami? Are we looking at earthquake? Are we looking at hurricanes and storms? Are we looking at, what type of thing? And I think the answer is in Neptune here. So who is Neptune? Neptune is known as the Roman god of the sea. In the Roman religion and mythology, Neptunus, also called Neptune, was originally regarded as the god of fresh water as opposed to salty seawater. He may have arisen as a sky god, casting lightning bolts instead of his Triton, or as a fertility god, sending up springs of water from the earth. So you were familiar. He usually has this trident here. Okay. By 399 BC, he was seen as equivalent to the Greek sea god Poseidon, or Poseidon, here, the way they're writing it. Thus, his domain changed from freshwater springs to that of the ocean and sea. His former role as deity of the freshwater is filled by a different god. Now, here, Poseidon, who is also Neptune, just the Greek version, and here's Neptune being the Roman version, is the earth shaker, the dark-haired one, Neptune. Poseidon was an Olympian god of sea and earthquakes. He was known for his fast-changing temperament and known for causing major catastrophic events such as floods, earthquakes, and sea storms, and even unleashed his sea monsters in order to get even. That'd be like the sharks, right? The shark jumping out of the sea and so on. I'm using, in the video, referring to types of sea monsters that we could be looking at, maybe even submarines, I'm not sure. But the idea is things in the sea to attack. So we have floods, earthquakes, sea storms, and even sea monsters in order to get even. So he's the earth shaker, a god of the sea. He does your storms and things. Here, obviously we have the planet, Neptune, and here's the symbol, okay, the trident. Now, let's go ahead and look at the Psalm 23 graffiti. First, I'm going to go back here because I have a screenshot of it in the reflection. You see, we just have the part that's the trident here. That's what's showing in the reflection in that panel of glass, in that piece of glass. So we're going to go from there. Now we're going to look at Psalm 23. Of course, I'm highlighting the Donald in there for people who don't know that's there. I'm just going to mention it now in passing. Donald Trump, his name Donald is right there in the Psalm 23. So it's not accidental that it was written in a way that shows the P also can be like the D up here, or this part of the S looks like an O, and then we get an N when you combine the A with the L, right? So you have Donald. This also shows, consistent with what you'd expect in this video, that a lot of thought went into every detail of how this was written, okay? It's Psalm 23, but it's also Donald, and as you saw in the reflection, it's also the sign of Neptune. Now, what did we just read about Neptune? We read that Neptune, well, before I get there, should I do Neptune first, or? Yeah, I'll do Neptune, why not? Okay, so what do we read about Neptune? We have that Neptune, of course, has this symbol, and that Neptune wielded lightning first before he moved over to the trident. We have our lightning bolt in here. We have our trident. Okay, so we have some indications that Neptune is being indicated in this painting, in the graffiti. Now, to go quickly, not only do we see this astrological sign of Neptune here, when planets go retrograde, okay, there's an astrological sign with that too. You get the sign of the planet like this, trident, but you also get the letter R. Okay? So when we have retrograde, like here is an example of trident retrograde. This person wrote it this way. When you write it very formally, you put this little slash through here, but it's not always necessary. It's often done without that. And here you have it. Now look, we also have the trident is the P, but the P goes up higher than the trident, and that's not accidental that they're related. This part of the P is also similar to the beginning of an R, the top part of the R, and we actually have a connection. The S is written so that it connects and comes down like an R. I think what we're looking at here is a symbol of Neptune retrograde, okay? And as it turns out, Neptune stations to go retrograde, it's going direct, stops on June 22nd, the day after the eclipse. Now, when we look closely at the graffiti, we see the eclipse. If you look right here, they have an indentation in the wall, a perfect circle. That's representing the moon. Here is the sun. Again, you're seeing them part ways. You have the eclipse. This is your June 21st eclipse. I think you may even have 621 written here. I'm not going to go digging too deep into numbers written into things really hidden in secret hidden places. But if you want to look into that yourself and think about it, you can. But if you look, the moon coupled with this little part here makes a 6. Here's your 2, explicit. And then this little part that sticks up looks like a 1. So you have your 21, 6, 6, 21, embedded with the eclipse being depicted. And if you look closely at the scene as a whole, when we back up, just like in the classroom, where should I go for this? Here, I think. Yeah, just like in the classroom, what is immediately behind the eclipse? Your doomsday clock. It's at doomsday. You also have that behind it. When we go back, we have the buck moon and the eclipse. Before and after the doomsday clock, they correspond to this sequence. The doomsday period begins with the annular eclipse on June 21st, and that period that goes through the buck moon. That is your starting point. Now, and it repeats over and over and over in the video. And here again, this is exactly what we saw in the classroom. We went from right to left. We saw the laugh out loud eclipse, the O. Above it, doomsday. After it, F equals negative X, retrograde motion. Okay, we have a stoppage of a planet to switch from forward to back or back to forward. Now, okay, where was I at? I'm jumping around sort of out of order for me. Okay, so we have Neptune, we have Neptune retrograde, we have, let's look at the, okay, I was showing the board. Okay, that's the scene I should have done. So here's the board, here's your laugh out loud eclipse, here is your doomsday, here's your eclipse, here's your doomsday, here's your eclipse, here's your doomsday, here's your buck moon. We're going to go over, we're going to have our mark of the beast symbolism of fertilization. Here is your retrograde motion sign. Here is your retrograde motion for Neptune. I assumed that this was Venus. It could also be Neptune. Neptune goes retrograde on June 22nd, which would be also a crescent moon day, so it corresponds. So if this sequence isn't about Venus, but it's about Neptune, that would explain it. And if it was about Neptune, you'd actually see the correspondence to the water event, right? Neptune's the god who's going to make the beast come out to attack you. Now, we go over here, and then we look at this. Now that we have some context, and we don't want to just find, I mean, I'm not saying there's no woo there. Maybe that also has an application as a woo, especially when we're looking at the calendar from 2017 and after. But when we're looking at this, rather than looking for just numbers and letters and things, I try to look for something that's meaningful symbolically to the occult, to people in the occult. And in this case, astrological symbols are really helpful. We just saw that we have the sign of Neptune in the psalm. Now look, here we have the same sign. This isn't a W. I mean, it could be looked at as a W, and there's maybe an application. But if you look closely, the middle part doesn't go up. It comes all the way down past it. That's your trident. This is Neptune again, okay? Now, the trident bottom part continues and goes forward. I have a different screen here. Okay, look at in the top right, I have drawn a little bit. So we have this trident. It goes down, and it will continue. It curves, and it will go around this other symbol, which I will explain in a minute. But I just want to focus on the fact that we have another symbol of Neptune. Neptune is a big part of this scene, which tells us that the false flag attacks associated with the eclipse and buck moon rituals are Neptune perpetrated, if you want to put it that way. That puts it in the category of earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, or even underground things coming out of the, or submarine attacks people have talked about. I don't know what to think of that, but this is the category. That's the type of attack we're looking at, as far as I can tell, in this period or related to this ritual, whenever that happens. So we're looking at a Neptune attack, okay, related to Neptune Retrograde. Now, this is really interesting. So I said, wow, so we got Neptune Retrograde here starting June 22nd, right after this. It matches up perfectly. It's right there in the Psalm, right into Psalm graffiti, related to Doomsday. Timing is perfect, everything. What do the astrologers say? And so I went and I got the first one I came across. Of course, it's the site astrology.com. Neptune's 2020 retrograde releases illusions from the past. And it says Neptune will station retrograde on June 22nd, 2020 at 2057 Pisces. Okay, so it's in Pisces, related to fish. Okay, and will station direct on November 28th at 18:09. So 18 minutes 9 degrees, or 18 degrees 9 minutes. Excuse me. Okay, and so let's read more about this. Listen to what they have to say. This is really interesting. Neptune in Pisces by transit unleashes a tidal wave with the potential to disintegrate the structures that have been defining our identity. As old patterns and boundaries dissolve underneath Neptune's waves, it can feel as if we're opening to messages from far outside our known reality while simultaneously facing disillusionment with the way things have been. In the wake of Neptune's washing away the familiar, our ability to effectively reorient can be impacted by exhaustion and confusion, as well as insecurity over leaving the secure known for an unknown potential. Now, that sounds a lot like what the video is about, right? This corresponds to their plan. Neptune in Pisces, right the day after the eclipse, the solar eclipse, when we enter this period of transition, they're going to disintegrate the structures that are familiar to us, and all of that through Neptune-caused destructions, Neptune style. Okay, we're going to be looking at, like I said, earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, big storms, flooding, water events. Okay, water events, beasts from the water, whoever they are. Okay, these sorts of things. That's the idea. Now, let's continue. What is Psalm 23? Because we don't want to just ignore it as graffiti and say Psalm 23 real fast, but say, oh, it's Donald, and it's the Neptune sign, and look over here, we can find a 2 and a 1 and a 6, and we don't want to just do that stuff. We want to look at the plain meaning of what's going on. We have Psalm 23 up there. What is Psalm 23? This is the psalm that says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. But look at the graffiti. Neptune gets his hands on this. He's striking a lightning bolt that comes out of the 21, the eclipse. Right? You got this lightning bolt coming. This is his wrath. And the letters are all shaken. They're all a mess. They're not straight anymore. It's not written like a psalm. It doesn't look calm. It doesn't look tranquil. It doesn't look like still waters at all. He's destroying the still waters, both physically, I think, as a water event as the false flag attack, But certainly, if we want to take this in a metaphorical way, the plan is going to be, and maybe it's a both and, the plan is going to be to take away the still waters that comfort God's people. In other words, they're getting rid of Osiris, the age of Osiris, remember? That's what this whole thing's about. If we keep in mind what their ritual is about, their ritual is to bring about the Aeon of Horus in purity, totally getting rid of the Aeon of Osiris, which is the resurrection Aeon, the Aeon that focuses on the importance of death and resurrection. And so resurrection, religion, ritual, all that needs to be gotten rid of. And as we saw in the Mark of the Beast video, the Mark of the Beast ritual video, part 3 I think it was, we saw there what? Angry Horus, RHK, is being called upon here to come forth in his vengeance and warlike character to pour his wrath on whatever is left from the Aeon of Osiris. That's the church. That's the Christians. That's why at the end of the video the church is finally destroyed totally. And he's looking the other way, and he's all like, hey, all right, my eyes are open now. The passion of Horus has ended. His crown of thorns disappears. Okay? Now, in this scene right here, we're looking at the destruction of the tranquility of God's people. They're trying to take the still waters from us. Now, they can't do that. They can't do that because God's the one that protects us. Even if we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we don't need to be afraid. We don't need to be sitting around afraid. But the point is, that's what they think they're doing, and they're also going to be doing this physically, I think. I think the goal is to have some sort of false flag attacks related to water. These are Neptune caused. So if you want to think about what types of things will they try to accomplish, they're going to try to accomplish the sorts of things that the ancients would have attributed to Neptune or Poseidon. Tsunamis, hurricanes, fierce storms, huge floods, these sorts of things. Now, let's keep going. We have more in this scene, okay? We have seen that we have the trident, that's Neptune, with this little curve underneath, I think probably indicates that it's turning around. Notice this is the retrograde period. Here we have what people have thought is a U, and it has a U-like look, obviously, but if you look at it, it's actually narrower here. It's narrower here than it is here. That's not how we usually write the U. Write a U. Of course, it can be a U, but that's not what it is primarily here. Okay, what is it? That is, let me show you, the symbol of the lunar south node. Now, the moon, if you notice, the orbit of the moon around Earth is not always intersecting. It's not a complete overlap with the sun. The sun's orbit is from the perspective of the from Earth, right? That's why you can't have eclipses all the time. To have an eclipse, the moon has to be at one of these nodes, at one of these points where the sun and the moon are in alignment with one another from the perspective of the Earth, right? So we're looking at the one, and the moon actually gets in front of the sun. Okay. Or on the other side, when the sun is over here and the moon's over there, and the shadow from Earth is cast on the sun, on the moon. Now, that'd be your lunar eclipse. Now, look, here we have the south. We have a lunar south node, which looks like a U, except you have the narrower top and the wider middle. The lunar north node points down. When you look over here, that is a lunar south node. If we go over here this year, lunar eclipse in Capricorn. So we have the solar eclipse. That's a north node eclipse. That's on June 20th, 21st. Depends where you're at in the world. Whoever wrote this is from a different part of the world, where it's the 20th. But June 20th, this is the solstice eclipse, 21st. And then you have the lunar eclipse in Capricorn, which is the buck moon eclipse. That is a south node eclipse on July 4th, 5th, 2020. So what you're looking at here is a sequence again. We're going from June 22nd, the beginning of Neptune Retrograde, over to the July 5th south node eclipse, which is the buck moon eclipse, the penumbral eclipse that happens the 4th of July night into the morning on July 5th. And so we're getting the sequence here again. Now, I think there's even a little more to it. If we keep looking here, I tried to draw over it a little better. Okay, if you look here, we have the trident clearly. It goes around, and you sort of lose the line, but I think it's there still. It goes up, and then you have another one that comes over here. Okay, and you have another one that comes right up here. And I tried to draw what it looks like up here so we can see it like overhead. And it looks like a trident going to another trident to me. Trident to trident. I think that line goes basically to here. Okay, and this other one comes out. Now, they're drawn differently. This trident is cut basically in the middle by the center part, the pole or whatever you want to call it that's curving. This time, they put a break here, and they want to make sure the lunar node is clear. But they want to continue it, and this almost looks like a wave to me. Okay? It's like you have a wave coming out of it, and you have trident to trident. I'm not sure if that what the significance there is, if I'm reading into this too much or not. Maybe it's just the trident to the lunar node, and I'm going too far now. But I don't think most things here are, that there's many things that are not well thought out. So I think it's a reason for it, and I'm pretty sure of that. And so let's say that is trident to trident. If that's the case, and we have this sort of hook to make it look like to emphasize the retrograde time, that would be from the beginning of retrograde to end of retrograde, I think. And that would be from June 22nd through November 28th, which would mean that we'd have a window of time where this is happening, whatever these events are, storms, floods, hurricanes, whatever else, Neptune time, that lasts a little over 5 months, okay? A little over 5 months, from June 22nd to November 28th. And so I think whatever these enormous water events are, I would be surprised if they all happen on a day. That may be a beginning. We may have a beginning. There's certainly going to be a beginning date for whatever happens, but I don't know if that's going to come with shock and awe, so like as a shock and awe type event that is so catastrophic, everybody's like, whoa, or if it's going to be big. You have that Leonard Cohen song, it's Father's Day and everybody's wounded. And then the picture on the board, you have the hangman. The guy's not dead. He's wounded. And then in the calendar months behind the girl, behind Lilith, you have the June month that we saw. He's got the cast on, the body cast to the arm. He's wounded, not dead. It seems like whatever is happening starting in June may not be the big thing yet. It starts. It's Doomsday starting, but it may be a several month period of one thing after another, progressively worse. In the meantime, there's solutions. There were, problem solution, problem reaction solution, whatever. Their solution is to bring in Mark of the Beast type stuff. Things that are going to hurt the Christians and eliminate Christianity, and so on, as part of the progression to institute to bring about the Eon of Osiris. Now, so again, I've said repeatedly from the very beginning of my videos, I don't get caught up on, I see a 621 or the solar eclipse, so it's going to happen that day. And then when June 22nd comes and we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs thinking, what happened? I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm not, because I don't think it happens like that. They almost never do things like that. Sometimes maybe, rarely. But this scene here even, I think, gives us a hint that they're looking at at least several months of unfolding catastrophe and unfolding Neptune-wrought catastrophe. So we're looking at water stuff. That is hurricane season. So it could be a lot of hurricane-related things. And I think on that map, I'll look at the map again, but there's the pin that people say, that's the BP oil spill, Deep Horizon, whatever. And I don't think it is. I mean, I know I've said that in the past, but I was looking at it more carefully, and one thing that's always bothered me is that that pin is really far from the Louisiana coast. I mean, we're talking really far. But the BP oil spill happened only about 50 or 90 miles away from the coast. It's close. It was. I don't remember exactly, but it was close. It was deep water, but it was close to the coast, and so that pin isn't even close to where the BP oil spill was, which makes me think hurricane. If they can start storms out there in the Gulf, maybe this year will be busy hurricane season because of that. Now, we do have above New York City, for example, a hurricane as well. But I'm still talking about the Gulf Coast there instead of the New York City coast, East Coast. All right, so let's keep going. We've got more to sell. Look at that. My next slide even has the map. So, yeah, so see how far that is? The BP oil spill actually happened like right there. Okay, this is long way off. I mean, it's the length of Florida off. It's not even close. All right, so water events, all of that. Now let's look at these locations. So we have the Gulf of Mexico one we just talked about. Probably not the BP oil spill. Probably instead of the BP oil spill, storms, hurricanes. That's Neptune style stuff, and it's out there. Okay. We have the coast here. We talk about that as in the past Hurricane Katrina. People say, oh, that was the Katrina false flag, not false flag, but attack, where they used whatever technology they have to control the direction of a hurricane and so on, and brought it in to cause the catastrophe there. And certainly maybe an application there. I think also we're looking at marshes. That's your marshland. One possibility. I'm only giving a possible interpretation now about what is going to come. And I have my doubts about how bad it's going to be. Not that it's not going to be bad. I think sometimes it's portrayed as very extreme. And I'm going to talk about what I don't know if it's even scientifically plausible to have that happen. But I don't know what kind of planning has gone into this, and what kind of devices they may have in there to make it happen or whatnot. But it certainly wouldn't be totally natural in a short time if it happened. But I'll explain this in a second. But that is also on a marsh. And I have reason to think that this buck moon stuff is related to Louisiana marshes as well as to Oklahoma. Okay? And I'm going to pull that all together by going to a movie now that we're going to look at. Okay? This is a movie that was released, oh man, how did I forget the year? Was it 2012 or 2011? 2011, I think. Called Drive Angry. This was released around the same time as all those other 621 things were coming out. Operation Blackjack was just a couple years before it. All those the Simpsons things were coming out those years. We had, there were several things. 621 was the people were talking a lot about 621. People were talking about Drive Angry in relation to May 4th, and there were some reasons for that at the time. Unfortunately, people who make these predictions, they put the videos up and sometimes they take them down. They often take them down. All that's gone from that period, so like 10 years ago. But it's all gone. I can't find any of it. So that's disappointing. I was trying to dig it up to see what people were saying to make application. But we'll redo work ourselves, right? So what is this movie about? You see it. Drive Angry, all hell breaks loose. The story is the Nicolas Cage character is in hell. He's dead. And he escapes from hell in a car. I didn't say it was a good movie, but whatever. So he escapes from hell in a car. And when he escapes from hell, he does this not for some terrible reason. He is going to Earth, or back to light, to be alive, in order to rescue his granddaughter who was kidnapped. She was kidnapped. Her parents were killed. His daughter was killed. She was kidnapped, and she is being taken to be sacrificed by Satanists in order to, and I'll explain that here. The head cult guy, head Satanist guy is this guy, Jonah King in the story. And this is a conversation between Jonah King and the Milton character, which is the Nicolas Cage character. And I'll just read a couple things so you can get the feel for what's going on. Crushed her so completely that she told everyone, "You were dead," said Jonah King. "No, Milton, I cannot in good faith hand over this child to you," his granddaughter, Milton's granddaughter. "I can't give her to you." And Milton responds, "But sacrificing her under the full effing moon, that's okay?" And Jonah King responds, "Okay. Milton, your granddaughter is unbelievably blessed. Look around. The world's on fire, companies own our governments, and the people suffer daily and will continue to suffer until change comes. And change will come thanks to your granddaughter, Milton. She will open the door to a new world order." Okay, so now what's going to happen? And then at the time that this Jonah King guy is going to sacrifice the daughter, he's got the knife raised. It says raising the knife. "With this sacrifice, no more will we be shunned," the Satanists. "They say the meek will inherit. They lie. We are not meek, we are chosen. The hounds of perdition will howl at our command, for now we..." Okay, and then it goes on to an interruption. The car comes driving in. Nicolas Cage saves the day. But the hounds of perdition will howl at our command. In other words, they're having a full moon ritual, satanic ritual, sacrificing this daughter, this granddaughter of Cage's, Milton, in order to get the demons to be under their control to carry out their plans to bring about a new world order. That's the story. Okay? Now, we go back. I'm going back now. Now we're at the beginning of the film, right after Cage escapes hell. Right here. He gets out, and he ends up on a road in Colorado. And he's chasing down people who kidnapped his kids. And I haven't had a chance to look at that symbol right there. I'm pretty sure that's meaningful. It's got to be. It's just too unnatural to be coincidental. But anyways, Cage crashes into their car, and he's being a tough guy, and they're all scared. And this guy, Cage asks this guy, says, "Where are they taking her?" His granddaughter. And that guy says, "You're too late. You gotta know that, right? First full moon. She's dead, man. She's dead, and hell's gonna walk the mother effing earth." Okay. Now, first full moon. After what? I mean, the first full moon was a long time ago in history. It's the first full moon after something, and they don't tell you in this movie. They just say the first full moon, leaving it open after whatever it was. But with everything else going on in the story, and with what we know was being released in their various things at the time, this is the first full moon, almost certainly after this eclipse. I think we can speculate that at least. Okay? Now, and the answer to the question this guy said was, he says, she's going to Stillwater Marsh, Texas, I think. Okay. He was wrong. It was Stillwater Marsh or whatever, but his Texas, I think, ended up being a mistake. Milton finds this out at a restaurant when he's asking somebody, "Where's Stillwater Marsh?" And she says, "Stillwater is in Louisiana. Stillwater is a prison." Okay. Milton mentioned Deacon's Tree. I don't know anything about that. If you got ideas about that, let me know. I haven't taken time to look it up. I was planning on doing a separate video explaining this movie, but so I'll dig in more if I ever get to that. But you can let me know what you think in comments. But Stillwater is in Louisiana. So now we're finding out that his sacrifice is going to be where? In a marsh in Louisiana, Stillwater Marsh in Louisiana. So let's keep going. So he leaves. Well, on his way out, he ends up partnering up with some lady who was at the restaurant, different lady, but at the restaurant she worked there, and he causes her car to break down. He did some, I don't know what he did, but anyways, he was gonna stop the car, go help her, and then get a ride from her. But as it goes to where she's gonna park, you see the car out there. They pan behind this billboard. I am really stumbling a lot right now, but anyways, you have a little heart hole here, and you have a big heart. Here's your two hearts again. And then they have Jesus is coming, but written over it is the satanic symbol that the Jonah sect leader, cult leader, had in his chain. Okay, this is their satanic symbol. And on the front of the sign, I pieced it together. You can see a little bit. She was in the way, so I had to get one half at one point, and the other half at the other point, and put together. So here's the sign, and we have a snake. The hole ends up being a face of the snake. It probably was a happier, nice snake for an advertisement, and now it's made a very, frightening-looking snake with its tongue out, looking like it's about to strike. Okay, and we have here it used to say is, but the people with the spray paint, presumably people, the vandals that were related to the satanic group, scratch out is, and they put was. Here it was. So something was there, and it's not there anymore, or won't be there. And, if you look closely, I'm not sure if we see what we see here, but maybe hold on a second. If we try to zoom in a little here, I don't know if that looks like a 2-5, but that also looks like a 6. Okay, I'm not going to dig much for numbers, but if you want to pause that and take a look, you can. The other side of the sign has, oops, I just made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. The other side of the sign has its own thing too. What do we got there? You tell me in the comments below. I'm not good at figuring out what numbers those are. I mean, I can read into it what I want to see. Like, oh, there's a 6, and the other one's a 21. But I don't know that that's actually there, and I'm not gonna put too much stock in that. But it sort of does look like it when I zoom in. When I back out, it looks more like a, I don't know, maybe a 2-5 or a 6. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know what you think. But we may have some more information there in that sign based on those numbers. Let me put this back in the middle. Okay. Now, as they travel, because they're going to go to Louisiana to stop the sacrifice, as they travel, where do they go? Let's see. Right here. There's a weird scene where they're passing through, and they stop to basically show you the sign and say, oh, we're going into Oklahoma. They pass through Oklahoma from Colorado to Louisiana, and they focus on the sign. They go through. Now remember, we're going to where? Stillwater Marsh in Louisiana, but there's also a Stillwater, I think the only one in the country, a city, Stillwater, Oklahoma. So now we've got Stillwater, Oklahoma, Stillwater in Louisiana. We have Psalm 23. Neptune's going to shake up what? The still waters. Now, this is all related to what's going to happen when, on the first full moon after something, in which there will be a satanic sacrifice in order to release the hounds of hell, demons from hell, it's a conjuring sacrifice, in order to control them to bring about a new world order. That's what the movie's talking about. That's what iPet Go 2 is talking about. It's ritual magic. And they're going to do this by disturbing the still waters, it looks like. They're going to the places of still waters. Now, here's how people... When I created a video years ago, this is what I thought would happen at the time. I thought, oh, maybe this is what's going to happen. I don't know. And I was worried about this, but I don't know how scientifically plausible it would be. I'm not worried about this West Coast part. I mean, I don't see how you get the ocean over the Rocky Mountains. That just seems ludicrous. But in the video, in the iPet Goat video, he's only pointing at the Gulf Coast and East Coast. Okay? That's where his two fingers are pointed. And this is a Forbes article. It says, the shocking doomsday maps of the world and the billionaire escape plans. Now, if you look, we have the Mississippi Valley, beginning with the Louisiana marshes, are sunk. Okay? All the way up, it connects to the Great Lakes. You also have the East Coast inundated. The coast has moved in quite a bit. And in this article, he talks about how these maps were created by these spiritual visionaries, psychics, often dismissed as crazy prophets, probably were. Their thoughts for a new world were quickly ignored and laughed at. Okay, but this guy talks about how billionaires are, moving to places and buying lots of land in places that aren't going to be affected by water primarily. But the NASA report says this isn't going to happen. Many doomsday theorists, according to a NASA report, many doomsday theorists have tried to take this natural geological occurrence and suggest it could lead to Earth's destruction. But would there be any dramatic effects? This is the pole shift stuff. The answer from the geologic and fossil records we have from hundreds of past magnetic polarity reversals seems to be no. There is nothing in the millions of years of geologic record to suggest that any of the doomsday scenarios connected to a pole reversal should be taken seriously. And the guy writing the article said, I recently spent the day at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, where the NEOWISE mission has become the official asteroid hunter. Then he goes on and talks about asteroids as a possible risk. Now, if you had an asteroid come, could it cause this type of damage? Professor Donald L. Turcotte, an expert in planetary geology at the University of California, Davis, Earth and Planetary Science Department, he tells me that the predictions of earthquakes causing a planetary shift in coastal flooding, like the map, is for the most part, he says most part, nonsense. However, he did say it is far more likely an asteroid hit would cause a polar shift. This could ultimately lead to cataclysmic change in a map similar to Scalion's, this map that we looked at the beginning, original version. With all of this knowledge of future mapping, do the world's financial leaders know something we don't? Consider how many of the richest families have been grabbing up massive amounts of farmland around the world. All property is far away from coastal areas and in locations conducive to self-survival, farming, and coal mining. And it gives examples, it appears dry territories in the United States, such as Montana, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Texas, are all very popular regions for the wealthiest individuals. Billionaires, 2.2 million acres in Wyoming and Colorado for John Malone, Ted Turner, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, Philip Anschultz, Wyoming, Jeff Bezos, Texas, Dan Kroenke, Montana, all have amassed major land. Upon further research, many billionaires are preparing for future escape plans with vacation homes in remote locations. Many of them also have their private planes ready to depart at a moment's notice. Bill Gates recently acquired 28,000 acres in Arizona to create his own city called Belmont. Let's see. Okay, and then he gives a description of what gives a description of the United States after this change. As the North American plate buckles, the new islands of California will be created with almost 150 islands of California. Okay, the west coast will recede east towards Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado, with the Rocky Mountains under the ocean somehow. I mean, I guess you'd have to have maybe you could get something. I have no clue how you get that. That just seems ludicrous. But I'm sure people would imagine the Yellowstone volcano possibly, if it was an enormous eruption, could do that. But if something that big happened, I don't see how anybody survives on Earth when it's that big, if it sinks the whole west coast. But whatever. Take it for what it's worth. This guy's talking about asteroids possibly doing it. The Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway will join and continue through the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. All coastal areas from Maine to Florida will be taken over by water and pushed inland for miles. Okay, so he says the coast, East Coast, and this area here from Louisiana up the Mississippi Valley, basically, and then crossing over Illinois into the the Great Lakes, all that will be inundated, becomes water according to this map. Okay, so again, will that happen? I doubt it. But the idea is this is the region that's being targeted. The Oklahoma, let's look at the map again. Oh, actually, let's look. First, I'm going to go through whether the video is portraying something like this happening. Possible interpretation here, not sure of it. First, flag torn in half. That's the United States split. That looks like the United States split, right? We have fence goes into water. We have a place where land used to be that is not. So permanent land has been just disappeared. It's in the water. This does not look like water that will recede. Look closely. This isn't, storm surge from a hurricane or a tsunami wave that's there. That's water that after the event is done has settled. That's the new coastline. We have a new coastline, if you want to think of it that way, in IPET Goat 2. So they're depicting fence into water, new coastline. Things that were there are not. Things that were there are not. Just like the sign says, here it is, they changed it to here it was in that movie, Drive Angry. We go forward. He's stranded on an island. Doesn't look like he swam to get there, right? He's out there on an island because everything else disappeared. Okay, so again, a case can be made that they're depicting an event that will sink land that was there permanently. We're changing geological features on a grand scale here, it looks like. That's why, if that's what they're depicting, it makes sense that it'd be Neptune to Neptune, right? The whole 5-month period. It takes a while to accomplish things like this. It'd have to be one thing after another. Probably some big storms first that flood everything, and then add some big earthquake when you already have this ground totally wet and enormous amounts of water there that would shake it and cause all sorts of liquefaction of the land. I don't know how you'd do it, but you'd have to plan it, and it would take a while. Maybe nuclear bombs planted in the ground. Conspiracy theories, which is, there are conspiracies. I'm not against conspiracy theories, obviously, but when we do that, our imaginations can go crazy. We can start coming up with all sorts of things. But in this video, it actually looks like they're depicting some sort of real change in the landscape, permanent. Okay, over here we have pieces of ice and land just sort of floating around out here like that. That wasn't where they were before. Again, we have oil spills from it, just pouring into the ocean again. We have the Statue of Liberty underwater. That's the East Coast. Coast changing. Remember, the ocean goes in miles. You have coast that's further in, according to this guy. If that were to happen, some people say it's a tsunami coming in, a tsunami wave. It looks sort of like it, but it's moving really slow if it is. Tsunamis usually move really fast, but it looks like a wave. But to me, this whole thing looks too calm to be an active tsunami scene. I think it looks more like this is after it's done. But I may be wrong. You see the wave look. Okay. We definitely have a big tsunami over a city here. Okay, we're crushing a city with huge waves. All right. So we can see how IPET Goat 2 could be portraying a major transformation. I don't know if it'd be as extensive as this. It wouldn't even have to be a tenth of that to be huge for people to notice and make a big deal. Even if you had a little part of the marsh down here sink. But whatever, these sorts of things. In New York City get hit by a tsunami. When we're looking at it, if we're thinking about it as something along that lines, I think we're closer to the ballpark than some enormous catastrophe like this. But you're looking at some major changes that I think they have in mind. And if you notice, they had, in that movie, on that day, still water. In IPET Goat 2, we have Poseidon or Neptune stirring up the still waters in Psalm 23. Still water, still water, still water. So here you have your marsh from that other film, from Drive Angry. That's where the ritual takes place. You have an Stillwater, Oklahoma. They drive through Oklahoma. Stillwater, Oklahoma. Stillwater is mentioned in Psalm 23, being shaken by Neptune. Oklahoma now has more earthquakes due to fracking and not just fracking, but other related human activity related to drilling and so on. That is then California. And Oklahoma occasionally has bigger ones than before, and people have been shocked by it. There's no telling how big of an earthquake this area can cause, or certainly the New Madrid Fault, seismic zone here, which in 1811 caused the Mississippi River to flow backwards. And the earthquake was so big, it was felt all the way to the East Coast. Okay, so you can have enormous earthquakes in this area. All that would be the work of Neptune, according to these guys. So you could have your hurricanes come in. You could have huge floods. You could have a big earthquakes. You could have catastrophes here in the marsh area. You can have a tsunami hit New York City. And when we look at the map, let me find the map. Here. When you look at the map, where are our points? We have the Gulf. I don't think that's BP oil spill necessarily. May have it's in the ballpark, but it's close. But it's not real close. It's hundreds of miles. Okay, so it's way out here. This, I think, is probably hurricanes. Think of Neptune activity. I think here we have our marsh as a target. Okay, still waters being attacked. I think you have down here, where's that? Oh yeah, here, Oklahoma. I think that's possibly Oklahoma City. That's also possibly the city Stillwater. They're very close to one another, and they're both right around that area, and it's sort of hard for me to tell. Okay, so we can have possibly earthquakes in that area, and we can have also the Manhattan area and the coastline tsunamis from some cause, which I don't know that. I'm not sure about yet. Some people think submarines. Some people think. But they have other theories, nuclear detonations on the floor of the ocean, whatever. There's the Canary Islands, okay, which would cause a tsunami that would hit the East Coast. So we have different possibilities here, but these are the types of things that Neptune would do. So think flooding on the Mississippi River, big flooding that would affect the marsh here. Think hurricanes flooding. Think then big earthquakes. Think that kind of activity, possibly. It's a theory, but it's interesting to bring up, to mention, and to throw out there so that people can think about and talk about it. Certainly there are other possibilities. We have in the video war for sure. We haven't gotten there. I just don't know that that's the false flag or what they're looking at in particular as far as the ritual is concerned when, quote unquote, releasing the hounds of hell so that they can be under their control to bring about the New World Order. Those events that get it started sound more like catastrophes to the United States that would be attributed to Neptune, those sorts of things, water events. All right, like, subscribe, and all that. Take care.